Good morning, everyone. I hope you are all having a blessed Sabbath. Today it's a very rainy, cloudy Sabbath for me, but regardless, we're here another day where I can continue to grow a lot more closer to God and to just be a better Christian every single day. A better 7 day Adventist, to be clear, every day. Um, I hope you are all doing well. Thank you so much for the continued comments I received in my last video. It just shows that we're all one big community. We are all God's children, and ultimately our mission here is to be committed to God, but also share the word as much as possible. I mentioned in my last sermon that we are in very close times. We're very close to the end, and it's so important that we take the time during our Sabbath, but every day, not just on Sabbath, to try to be closer to God, whether starting our day with a prayer, listening to hymns, listening to sermons, right? And or to the point of when things get difficult, when challenging, whether it's at work or, throughout the day where we are trying to manage things with the family, just take a moment out of the day just to pray and thank God or ask for his guidance. And then we end our day by closing off with a prayer and again getting into a slumber, knowing that God is there to protect at night for us. And I was watching. I was more or less watching a sermon today. Really was watching and taking notes of a sermon, and I know that not everyone knows about this, but our Father and Son, when we look at God and Christ, they have a very unique relationship. But that relationship can also be seen as an example between Adam and Eve before they sinned. And if we look at it, God and Christ are equal, right? They are two, but they are one in united form. They are creating the same substance. Christ carries the glory of God, right? And just in general, we see that Christ and God are equal, right? We know that they're both equal, but we also know that Jesus is subject to the authority of the Lord, of our Father, right? And he does not act independently on his own. And we see that though they're still equal, we still see that Jesus sees his Father as the head of authority. Now, we translate this to Adam and Eve, right? Adam was created, and how was Eve created? Eve was created from the bosom of Adam. They are still made out of the same substance, right? God breathed life into Adam, right? We know that they are created in the same substance. We also know that just like Jesus is the second image of his Father, we see that Eve is also the second image of Adam. We know that Eve should not be acting independently. Adam is the head of the authority for her. And we live in a sinful world where you say that, Eve is subject to Adam, right? People will say, like, oh, look at it from the feminist world, or they look at it from a political standpoint that women should not be subject to men, or they're not considered inferior. But if you look at through Bible, it's a beautiful thing. We as humans in this world has made it such a negative thing when we hear the word subject or authority, right? Or think that women are considered inferior to men. But when you look at the Bible, it's beautifully written. It's a beautiful nature. It's a beautiful relationship that should have been between Adam and Eve. And so Eve was also created in the glory. Eve is known as a woman who's actually created in the glory of men. But Eve and Adam were created through the image of God, right? But yet, guess what happened? We know that both of them sinned. Yes, they ate from the fruit. But there's a deeper meaning. There's a deeper sin that they have committed. Eve committed two sins. One, she acted independently from Adam. And two, she wanted to ascend to the height of where God is. So she wanted to ascend to that level, and she acted independently from Adam, right? And then we see a sin that Adam also committed, and that's a big one that's very deeply rooted. We see that Adam, when he finds out that Eve ate that fruit from that tree, he immediately started to mourn. He was in pain, where he thought that, he's going to lose Eve. His love and commitment to his precious Eve, he was not willing to sacrifice or separate, and he ate from that fruit. He ate that fruit from that tree, and he completely ignored, God's command and order, where God specifically told them not to eat fruit from that tree. Eve acted selfishly, we can say, where she still wandered off from Adam, even though God told her that she should be not acting independently, but being very close to Adam. And on top of that, she wanted to ascend to the level of God. And then you have Adam, who was completely, attached to Eve, right? He knew that Eve was created in his image. He knew Eve was part of him. Like they are uniform. They are one. How can I let go of someone that is so precious to me, that was created from my bosom, right? And because of that, he also committed the sin where he could not, give up or realize that, he completely disregarded God's command. But knowing that these two had sinned, we can also see a parallel between Father and Christ's relationship. See, I mentioned earlier that Father and Christ are one. They're two, but they are considered one unified entity, right? When it came to the point where God had to make this difficult decision, when us humans have sinned, right? Jesus pleaded to God that, allow me to go and save this sinful human race. God was in the same position as Adam, right? Adam had to make the most difficult decision, where he mourned that he could not separate himself from Eve, knowing that she committed a sin. God was in a similar situation, where he needed to make a decision to give up his one and only precious son, which was Christ, right? He was willing, he had to make this difficult decision. Think about a father where he needed to give up his one and only son. And we see another example in the Bible when we look at Abraham and Abraham and his son, right? Where God told Abraham to go up to the mountain and sacrifice his son, right? His son Ishmael. But, what did we see with Abraham? He saw that this was a command and order from God. He knew that he's going to be losing his son, his precious son, and yet he continued to proceed. This is God's command. That's how much faith he had in God. And so you see that that God had to be in that same situation, the same boat, where he had to give up his own precious son, right? And what did he do ultimately? He did end up giving up his son. But that was a different outcome from Adam. Adam could not see himself being separated from Eve, and he just completely went in and committed a sin, which is the opposite of what God did. God gave up his son because he also had a lot of love for us, his children, the humans, the sinful humans in this world. What about Eve and Christ, right? I mentioned earlier that Eve, she committed two deeper sins besides eating the fruit from the tree, right? She acted independently, and of course, she wanted to ascend to the level of God. Christ, however, going back to that decision where God had to give up his son, Christ didn't work independently. He said that God, this is like from God willing, like from God, if you are willing, I'm willing to sacrifice myself, right? He did not work independently. He asked God, right? They conversed on it, right? It's not like he made this decision on his own without consulting God, right? Without consulting his father. He said that, God, you are my authority. You are the head of my authority. Only if you're willing, right, we proceed with this. And on top of that, Christ humbled himself and descended, while as Eve, from her selfish standpoint, wanted to ascend to the level of God. So you see two distinct comparisons, right? We wanted to see an example on this earth with Adam and Eve, but you see two different outcomes when you compare the relationship between father and son, right? So it's just something that makes you realize that how selfless our Christ and Father were, for us. That the love for all of us is so deep. It's so beautiful to look at. But we as humans in this world, we are built by faith. But the way we behave with each other, the way we, try to scheme or do things in such wrong ways, right? Or make decisions that just affect people ultimately, makes you realize that we are nowhere to be compared to God, and Jesus. They are considered one. But God, time and time again, has shown examples where this is possible, where we can be better humans. But it's up to us, where we need to fight those tendencies, those sinful tendencies, the sinful nature we have, where we are selfish, where we are jealous, where we have no compassion for our brothers and sisters. Like, look at everything that's happening in this world. Look at how much so many children in different countries where they can't have 3 meals a day, right? Don't have proper health care, don't have clean water. But if we for once took money out of the equation, took the political powers and political constraints, and keep all of that aside and just look at it from a basic human to human, where ultimately we are God's children. If we looked at it from that point of view, I think this world would have been in a much better place. We would have been much better, and maybe God would have been proud of us, right? I look at it more as we head towards the end times, that we as humans, right, have really disappointed God so much. And this is our only opportunity to do a little bit more to redeem ourselves. It's such a difficult and pitiful state that we're all in right now. But I implore to all of you who are watching this video that please take a minute to, whether it's a coworker, whether it's a family member, a friend, maybe someone you just walked on the street, right? If you see that someone is struggling, someone needs help, just give them a lending hand, right? It'll make a huge difference for them. For you, it may not be a big deal, but for them, it will be such a huge difference for them, where they may go home, still thinking about that, that beautiful gesture you did for them, or just thinking about them. Maybe there is someone that you haven't, talked to or met with for so long. Maybe reach out to them, right? Little things like that every day, even if we cannot make a huge impact, they are still considered impactful one way or the other, and God sees it all. God sees it all. And you don't need the whole world to see the wonderful gestures or the things that you're doing, right? We are here just to do this selflessly, not to have some selfish motive, not to have, ulterior reasons why we are doing, why we're doing this, why are we volunteering, why we're doing that. Like, we don't need to take pictures to show the world, like, look what we did, right? But it's just the selfless act that we're doing, that I know I feel good when I do something good to help my fellow brothers and sisters. And I know it's a beautiful feeling to feel, like it's a lasting feeling you could feel. And we need to do more of that as Seventh-day Adventists. And not just as Adventists, but like even for people who have not converted or maybe are in different religions, right? Just being unified as brothers and sisters would really make this world a better place. So, anyways, I just wanted to share because, we see multiple examples of Father and Christ, and we should all be working towards that type of relationship, right? Even though Adam and Eve didn't make it, to give that example, to replicate that example between Father and Christ relationship, we can at least do our best to strive for that. So, nonetheless, I hope you all continue to study your Bible and continue to read sermons and just, enjoy your Sabbath, because we don't know how many Sabbaths we're going to have, right? Time is coming very soon for us. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you all continue to have a blessed Sabbath and stay well and stay safe.